Welcome back, Wainsider family, to a channel that lives and breathes the emotional pulse of this industry. Tonight, we are not just analyzing moves, we are dissecting a profound and heartbreaking fracture in the very soul of a dynasty. What we witnessed on Monday Night Raw was more than a segment, it was a funeral for a bond we all believed was unbreakable. It was Jey Uso, standing alone in that ring, delivering a eulogy for his own twin brother with words that cut deeper than any blade. To truly feel the weight of this moment, we must travel back through the years, to the very beginning. We must remember two brothers who did everything together, from their first steps to their first superkicks. They were not just a tag team, they were a single entity, a force of nature operating on a wavelength only they could hear. Their power was in their unison, their language a series of glances and unspoken commands that could dismantle any opposition. They were the backbone of the Bloodline, the soldiers who made the tribal chief's reign possible. But within that kingdom, a silent hierarchy was established, and with it, the seeds of resentment were sown. Roman Reigns, the acknowledged head of the table, demanded absolute obedience. For years, Jimmy and Jey provided it, but the pressure was a constant, crushing weight. They were princes in a regime where the king's favor was fickle and his punishments were severe. They bore the scars, both physical and emotional, of upholding a legacy that always seemed to crown one man while using the others as stepping stones. Please like, share and subscribe for more WWE content. We watched Jey Uso, in particular, evolve under this pressure. He was the one who first felt the brutal lash of Roman's tyranny, who was broken down and rebuilt in the tribal chief's image. He became main event Jey Uso, a singles competitor pushed to his absolute limit. And through it all, his twin, Jimmy, was there. Or was he? There were moments, subtle glances, where Jimmy's smile didn't quite reach his eyes when Jey's successes were highlighted. Then came the great betrayal at Night of Champions, a wound that has never truly healed. Jimmy, in an act of twisted love, cost Jey his chance to dethrone Roman, claiming he was saving his brother from the corrupting influence of the championship. It was a catastrophic miscalculation that shattered the trust between them. It was the first crack in the foundation, a fissure that would eventually swallow them whole. Jey left, seeking solace and success on Raw, while Jimmy remained, seemingly loyal to the tribe that had caused so much pain. Their recent reconciliation felt like a miracle, a testament to the power of blood. We wanted to believe it. We saw them hug, we saw them smile, we saw the Usos reunited against the Bloodline at WrestleMania. It felt like the healing had finally begun. But healing requires addressing the infection, not just bandaging the wound. The silent resentment, the unspoken competition, the differing experiences of their time under Roman's thumb, none of it was ever truly talked about. It festered. This brings us to Monday Night Raw. Jimmy came out, not as a foe, but as a brother. He spoke of family. He spoke of their bond. He extended what felt like an olive branch, a plea to finally come back home, to be a unit again. The crowd was hopeful, yearning for the fairy tale ending. Jey listened, his face a mask of conflicted emotion. He spoke of their history, of the good times, of the undeniable power they shared. The air was thick with the potential for forgiveness. Then, the tone shifted. Imperceptibly at first, then with chilling clarity. Jey began to articulate his pain, his journey. He spoke of being under Roman's thumb, of the pressure to obey, to conform, to never step out of line. He described the psychological prison he had lived in for years. And as he spoke, his cadence changed. His posture changed. He wasn't just recounting history, he was channeling it. He was embodying the very persona that had tortured him. The words that came out of Jey Uso's mouth were no longer his own. They were Roman Reigns' words. They were dripping with the same condescending arrogance, the same manipulative rhetoric. He spoke of acknowledging him. He questioned Jimmy's loyalty. He referred to himself as the one who had truly evolved, who had become the main event, while Jimmy had stagnated. He was no longer just Jey Uso, he was a dark reflection of the tribal chief, a ghost from their past summoned to haunt the present. The arena fell silent, the audience sensing the seismic shift before the physical blow even landed. Jimmy stood in the ring, utterly bewildered, watching his brother morph into their tormentor. The man before him was a stranger wearing his twin's face, speaking a language of oppression they had both suffered under. The betrayal was not in a raised fist, but in the venomous diction, the cold, calculated dismissal. Jay had weaponized their shared trauma. And then, it happened. The emotional assault reached its peak, and the physical one followed. As Jimmy tried to reason with the phantom in front of him, Jay snapped. The love in his eyes was replaced with a cold, familiar fire. A shove escalated into a flurry of strikes. The superkick that followed wasn't just a move, it was a period at the end of a sentence of hatred. Jey Uso, the victim of Roman's psychological warfare, had now become its chief executioner against his own blood. He stood over Jimmy's fallen body, not with remorse, but with a terrifying semblance of satisfaction. He had done it. He had finally asserted his dominance, not just over his brother, but over the ghost of Roman Reigns that lived in both their minds. In trying to escape his shadow, Jay had become the shadow. He had internalized the abuse and now was replicating it on the only person who had ever truly been his equal. The aftermath in that arena was a void of sound, punctuated only by the haunting echo of the theme music. We were left with the image of Jimmy, alone and broken in the ring, and Jay, walking up the ramp with a swagger we've only ever seen from one other man. This was not the hot-blooded passion of a feud, this was a cold, clinical dissection of a relationship. This was the system finally claiming its second-to-last victim. Backstage whispers indicate that the shockwave from this segment was palpable. There was no jubilation, no high fives for a segment well done. Instead, there was a somber recognition of the gravity of what had just been portrayed. The word, generational, was used. This was seen not as just another chapter in a feud, but as a foundational shift for both characters, a moment that will define the rest of their careers, for better or for worse. What does this mean for the Onoa family legacy? It is now irrevocably fractured. The Bloodline saga is no longer a story about a tribal chief and his descending cousins. It is a Shakespearean tragedy about the corrosive nature of power and how it can poison even the purest of bonds. The legacy is no longer about championship gold, it is a cautionary tale about what is sacrificed in its pursuit. The throne is built on the rubble of broken families. Jey Uso's shocking transformation forces us to ask a terrifying question. Was Roman Reigns the cause of this rot, or was he merely a symptom of a deeper sickness within the dynasty itself? Did he simply reveal a latent capacity for cruelty that exists within all who seek to sit at the head of the table? Jay sought freedom from the oppression, but in attaining power, he has become the oppressor.